to comment on the vexing issue of homework, examinations, and stress. One mother told me recently, said, Mr. Heng, there's not a mother in Singapore who is not stressed about her child's education. And so, indeed, some dads too. And the more I hear about this, the more stressed I become. I spent the last 1 year or so discussing with our educators, parents, and students. And it seems to me that the sources of stress are multiple. For some, it is excessive homework and CCAs. For others, it is extra assessment books, tuition, and enrichment classes. Our bookshops are quite unique. Walk into any of our bookshops and you see that one of the largest sections are assessment books. Actually, I should add that when I look at bookshops in China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan, it's also the same. Now, for many, it is expectation and ambition to do one's best, especially at high-stakes examinations. And comparison with others is often a source of stress. One student told me that first, her parents asked her, why didn't she get into a top school like her cousin? Then, when she got 80 marks for a test, her parents asked her why her cousin in a better school got 85. So she worked very hard. And then when she got 85, her parents said, but girl, your cousin now got 90. So the poor girl said she felt she had done her best, but it was never good enough. But thankfully, she remained a very cheerful girl. One father who met me on a Saturday morning complained that his daughter had to stay in school till 4 p.m. for 3 days a week. 2 for extra lessons, 1 for CCA. As a result, he had little quality time with her. Now, since it was a Saturday morning, I asked, where's your daughter? And he said rather apologetically that he had sent her for an enrichment class. Another complained to me that the school conducted extra lessons during vacation. I checked and found that it was optional. But he replied, so what? My son has to go. Otherwise, he will lose out. It's best that MOE scrap the whole thing. So while some parents know that extra lessons could take up too much time at the expense of time with the family, they still send their children for tuition and enrichment classes for fear that they may fall behind. Now, as we deliberate over this issue, it is useful to learn from the experiences of other countries. One country in East Asia cut curriculum, only to have to restore it a few years later and add more, when standards fell sharply. Another expanded university places so that over 80% of each cohort of students can go to universities. But it did not stop parents from sending children to cram schools so that they can cram well enough to enter one of the top 3 universities. Their education ministry now has inspectors to ensure tuition centers close by 10 p.m. Another education system abolished their equivalent of PSLE, yet concerned parents are now queuing up to have their 3-year-olds do assessment tests for admission to high-end kindergartens. I asked, what do they assess? And they said they assess language skills and motor skills. And I know of one poor child who happened to fall asleep during the assessment because it was his bed nap time and he couldn't get in. And the distraught grandparent said, my grandchild had his first failure in life. Well, now any society which prizes achievements will run into these issues. And I'm not just talking about even Asia. It is a global phenomenon. Our education system must have sufficient rigor and strength. It must not become soft. The issue for us is not to reduce stress to zero. A certain amount of stress is needed. A certain right amount of tension is needed. The key is to strike the right balance. There are no easy solutions, but MOE must reflect on what we can do and do our best. So first, tackle the issue of homework. Last year, we asked schools to issue homework guideline. We have considered if we should issue a standardized one across all schools. So primary school, X hours, secondary school, Y hours, and so on. And we decided that a one-size-fits-all guideline will not work. The demand of the homework on each child is different. Given the same piece of homework, one child may take half an hour, another may take 2 hours. But schools can do better to coordinate the amount of homework given. Let me share the practice of Jingshan Primary and Ahmad Ibrahim Secondary and several other schools. They have a state-of-the-art supercomputer to help them coordinate and schedule students' homework. Let me show you this supercomputer. It is a homework board at the back of the classroom. This lists the homework, tests, and projects in a given week or month, and that way, teachers can coordinate when setting homework to make sure that students are not overloaded on a particular day or week. They also get students to update their individual student handbooks daily, so parents know how much homework they are given, and the students learn how to manage their time, which by itself is an important life skill. So these are good practices to manage and coordinate the overall amount of homework given to students. And I encourage schools to make this more visible to parents going forward. Now I want to emphasize that schools should not be apologetic about giving homework. The studies on this are clear. Homework reinforces learning and deepens understanding. But it does not mean that more homework is always better. As in many things in life, if we overdo it, it can be harmful. So as a fraternity, let us see how we can improve the quality of homework so that we can use homework to assess if students have learned well and the areas where we need to reinforce the learning. Homework serves as an important tool in assessments for learning and reinforcing learning. Now, second, parents will want the best for their children. We cannot stop this, nor should we. Even for students who are doing well, some will choose to have tuition, even if it is not necessary, just to make doubly sure, as we Singaporeans like to say. And indeed, when I go to schools and ask students, I've been surprised by how many of the students themselves say that. Now again, this is not uniquely Singapore. In China, they are grappling with this. One tuition agency had a unique tagline. It says, "You may not be a genius, but you can be a father to a genius." Now, which father will not want that? In Singapore, we have the opposite advertising. Let me show you. We blanco off the name, the telephone number below just in case. I mean, well, but seriously, MOE can do our part not to contribute to the need for tuition. Our schools and our exams must not be run on the basis that students will have tuition. Some parents complain that our teachers tell the students to seek answers from the tuition teachers. And if this is true, we must put a stop to it. Now, this is not to say that tuition and extra support are not useful for some students. I know many of our teachers sacrifice much personal time to coach students, to run remedial classes, to run supplementary classes. I mean, we have many dedicated teachers who are doing this. And students who are weak in particular benefit from the extra help. But teachers cannot do everything, and I'm grateful that community tuition schemes, like those run by self-help groups, have been useful. There have also been tertiary students who have volunteered their time to help weaker students. And in class, as I mentioned earlier, there is much value in stronger students helping weaker students in the spirit of collaborative learning. But I would like to caution that excessive tuition can be harmful. If students overlearn, they become bored in class. It also comes at the expense of CCA, which is an indispensable part of holistic development, and time for other pursuits, such as reading, which broadens the mind, and spending time with friends and family. Now, when students have personal coaches for learning and look for ready answers rather than struggle and persevere to understand, it undermines the spirit of perseverance and independence. Now, when they start work, they cannot be running to someone for answers to difficult or unfamiliar issues. So these are things that we need to reflect on. What kind of qualities are we helping students develop? Now, third, we must not set unrealistic standards for tests and examinations. Anecdotally, some parents have told me that their schools seek to send a message to wake up their students who are underperforming and thus set a harder test for exams. We should not do this. Assessment standards must be appropriate. Studies show that setting tests that are too difficult often does not benefit students. It discourages them and they may lose interest in learning. So we will be studying how the level of difficulty of the assessments in our education system can be pitched appropriately and how we can provide better support to schools in setting questions. Now, there have also been many other suggestions. For example, one MP suggested that MOE should regulate the tuition industry, or teachers should teach more and do even more, or parents should not do so much, or parents should do this and that. Each of these supposed solutions place added expectations on overworked teachers to do more, or on parents to do things which they do not believe in. MOE must do our part, but it is important for us to not just tackle the symptoms. This is a complex subject, tied very much to our expectations and our values as a society. So we need to study this more deeply. But as a first step, I think it's important for us to take a step back and get to the crux of the issue and consider what really matters. I now like to suggest that for discussion, that what really matters are what are the attributes that will enable our children to succeed in life, fulfill their potential, and realize their expectations. What are our values and ideals as a society? And how can our education system help us get there? As a nation, we are reflecting on the future that we want to create together. PM outlined a vision for Singapore that speaks to the ideals of hope, heart, and home. Education must provide hope to our next generation. We must develop students with a heart and a longing for home. As such, we will today start our Singapore conversation on education. This afternoon, at our breakout sessions, we will engage over 5,000 of our educators in this effort. And we'll continue to do this over the next few months over multiple platforms, including online. Parents, teachers, and our educators will all take part. But I'll bear in mind that the school holiday is coming and we'll have no sessions then. I would like to encourage all of you to take part in these discussions and to ask the fundamental questions of what kind of children do we want to raise. Let me share with you an email I received 2 nights ago from a parent who expressed her hopes for her 4-year-old child when she grows up in 20 years' time. And Ms. Lau wrote, "I hope to see an independent, confident, and disciplined young adult who is resilient and positive in times of crisis." Well, this has been a long speech. Thank you for all your patience. But before I finish, I would like to introduce you to a special person, Miss Liao. Miss Liao's husband was diagnosed with cancer and passed away 3 years ago. She cared for her ill father-in-law for 16 years till he passed away last year. From these experiences, she thought to try to take up nursing and work in a hospice. Miss Liao emailed ITE on her interest, but also expressed a reservation about her age. To her surprise, ITE replied within 3 hours to assure her that age was not an issue. She picked up the forms from ITE, went through a thorough interview. In fact, she was contacted at 8 a.m. and by 8 p.m. she had completed the interview and was enrolled in ITE. And just like her classmate, she wears the ITE uniform proudly every day. Well, this is a slide of Miss Liao. She is 50 years old, and she's going to take the NAPFA test, which is part of the course requirement. I'm touched by Miss Liao, her love for learning, her resilience, and her can-do attitude. Miss Liao is with us here today, and I would like to ask her to stand and acknowledge your So I'd like to say to Miss Liao that your strength of character and spirit of learning and spirit of service is an inspiration to us all. And I hope that we can help our students become lifelong learners with strength of character like Miss Liao. If we can ensure that every student an engaged learner, every school a good school, every teacher a caring educator, and every parent a supportive partner. Let us work together to shape our education system for the future, to best equip our children to write good next chapters of our Singapore story. And let us start with our Singapore conversation on education this afternoon. Thank you very much.